So part three, which I am calling the victim, and which you may not like, and there is no censure on my part, no judgment, no nothing, because I have been a victim, and probably most of us have a bit of victim in us. Now, what happens when we have our wound, our heart wound? Some people in life have a personality that does not worry about this, that and the other, and they don't harbour grudges. They don't, I'm doing this, but they don't hang on to somebody said this, somebody did that, somebody did the other. And you know, the mind and the sort of fox in the mind is an incredible treadmill. It loves to keep churning over things. And we mentioned the ego. The mind works with the ego and the wounded heart. In some of us, not everyone, but quite a lot of us, I would have said, the three work together to form a chaos. And what they do in energetic terms, which may or may not interest you, but they form something I've mentioned before, and certainly in the papers, and please read the papers, they form something called a miasma, which is a horrid thing, and it exists in the world. There has been a sort of miasma at the bottom of Africa. If you look down Africa, it's to the right, it's on the way to South America, and it is called the South Atlantic Anomaly, and it's a sort of horrible miasma mat thing. I see a miasma as an energy mat. It's fibrous, it's sticky, gluey, horrid, and it actually affects the climate and the ozone layer, all sorts of things at the bottom of South Africa. Have a look at that. But it's the same thing that happens in our hearts when the wounded heart takes over, gradually taking on more resentment, blame, hatred, destructive stuff, wonderful justification for doing horrible things, creating bad energy, creating bad feeling, creating willful, a very sort of miserable, willful awkwardness, willful negative attitude to life. Now, I'm sorry to say this, but what happens with our friend the wounded heart, as well as ingesting all this horrible stuff and holding on to it, which it can do, and we could teach this to our kids. You know, our little kids are fabulous. They would sort this out in a minute, and they would tell each other, you know, they'd sort it out. I promise you, they'd sort it out very quickly. But what happens is that all of this hugging of stuff gets more and more abrasive, and added to this, the ego flings itself in and says, "Oh, poor me, please forgive me, dear Oscar Wilde, from your wonderful story." But what this victim says with the ego, "Who has dared to wound me? And I'm naughty." But that is what is going on, my darlings. It is going on, and it's going on in us, and it went on in me for some time in my life, because we don't always want to look at why things happen to us. And we are responsible for ourselves, unfortunately, and we are, once we've brought in all this stuff and then we sit upon it, we don't hatch the golden egg, we hatch the rotten egg. Now, the victim is always more hurt than anyone else. So it's a miserable thing to be in victimhood, and I've written a paper that is there now. Please look at it, because there's a lot to carry in the head when doing these little talks. The victim always says, "Poor me." So even if somebody is very, very hurt, and which in this time some people are, many people are very, very hurt, and many people are anxious, and many people are fearful. And we've said before in these videos that all of those things help the body to be ill. The cells don't like it. They don't, you know, they just don't enjoy negative stuff, and they start to get sick. Now, if we want all of this to vanish from our world, we have to drop the ego. We have to drop the parrot on the shoulder of the mind that's constantly going, nah, 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 and you have to clear all that in the best way for you. I don't know what that is. You must discover that, find your place of peace and quiet and love. And when we have to realise that we are victims, there is a big consciousness called the consciousness of the victim, of victimhood. And I have said before here, that a friend of mine years and years ago said to me, and I nearly fell off my chair, she said, "Oh, don't you think you're being rather masochistic, self-harming in the mind, in the attitude structure?" And I was horrified and couldn't believe her and thought, me? What? I am masochistic? Oh. And it was very funny because of course I was. Because one of the things that happens when we're a bit victimish, we think, oh, that's happened to us, as if we had nothing to do with it, nothing to do with us, no, nothing to do with us. And so victimhood comes upon us and we play the role of the victim, and sometimes we enjoy our victimhood, and that is virtually masochism. Now this is not funny, this is very serious. I have taught the most lovely young people who have done self-harming, cut their arms, self-harmed. This was not very common in my own youth, and it is very common now. Anorexia, bulimia, all of these things that are self-harming, even the taking of big drugs, actually at the end of the day, self-harming. So I want to say that please read the papers. This is a very big topic. It's not easy. But some of the greatest hearts in our world have harmed themselves quietly, secretly, because they hurt so much. And the heart does hurt. The heart is absolutely a loving organ. It is meant to love. It is thinking. Christian Barnard and Princess Diana, think with your heart, be the heart that you want to be. Gandhi, be the person you want to be through your heart. It's not meant to be inward going. It's not meant to be imploding. It's not meant to be storing up all the rubbish, believing that everyone has a better life than we do. I dare say, some people do have better lives, but we make our lives, and all of this difficulty at the moment is making us look at these things, and they start in our home. Please let's go on together and clear this now so that we can have a better world. Thank you.